Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to get started in just a minute or two. We're going to give everyone a little bit of time to join us and get settled in. But in the meantime, if you all want to share in the chat your name and the name of like your institution or your organization, we can get started like that. So I can go first. We have Casper College, Niagara College, NETC, Lrnr, of course, Maysville Community and Technical College. Wow, we really have people joining us from all over. That's wonderful. Florida A&M. No, thank you everyone for joining us today. We're so excited that everyone was able to join. We'll get started in about like 30 seconds. Mid-Michigan, New Jersey. Wow, awesome. Lyons High School in Kansas. Awesome. So since we're at 2 minutes after the hour, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen and get started. So I hope that everyone can see my screen. Once again, thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Lindsay and I'm a marketing specialist at Openstax. And today we're joined by Arvind and other members of the Lrnr team to discuss strategies for teaching anatomy and physiology labs using a variety of digital and online tools like virtual lab experiments, adaptive quizzes, 3D models and images, and more. So a lot of you are probably familiar with what Openstax is, but if you're new to Openstax, there's a couple key things you'll want to know. First, Openstax is based out of Rice University in the wonderful city of Houston, Texas, and we are a nonprofit organization. We're able to create our free textbooks and instructor and student resources due to support from foundations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, individual donations, and mission support fees from our ecosystem partners. So whenever one of our instructors pairs an Openstax textbook with one of our paid technology offerings, our technology partners give us a small mission support fee back that helps to sustain our operations. As a nonprofit, Openstax is mission-oriented, and our mission is ultimately to transform education and learning so that education works for every single student. Since 2012, we have published over 45 free, openly licensed textbooks, and in the process have saved students over $1.7 billion. You just heard me say that Openstax offers free, openly licensed textbooks, but what exactly does that mean? So Openstax textbooks are an example of open educational resources, or OER, and we have a wonderful definition up here on the screen from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, which is a super strong supporter of OER and Openstax. And OER are any educational materials that live in the public domain, do not cost anything to use, and do not have traditional copyright restrictions on them that ultimately limit how people can use them. Therefore, instructors and anyone really are able to revise, reuse, and redistribute this openly licensed content however they wish. Like I mentioned before, Openstax publishes a library of over 45 free openly licensed textbooks. All of our textbooks follow the standard scope and sequence requirements of their respective courses and are written and revised by peer and industry experts. All of our textbooks undergo a rigorous editorial process, and we make regular errata and industry updates where necessary. So we may publish a new edition of one of our textbooks if there is a major development in a field, like we recently did with the second edition of our astronomy textbook. Or each year we may just make some updates to the online versions of our textbooks to ensure that they are up to date, relevant, accurate, and representative of the diverse users of our textbooks. Overall, OpenStax textbooks look a lot like other textbooks that are available on the market. However, unlike textbooks that aren't OER, OpenStax textbooks are 100% free to use, and you're able to revise them however you'd like. However, OpenStax offers more than just textbooks. Each of our textbooks come with free instructor and student resources like LMS course cartridges, test banks, and interactive PowerPoint slides. In addition, we also offer free webinars like this one and articles on our blog on a variety of different topics like strategies for teaching, strategies for using our resources, and strategies for increasing student engagement and ultimately improving student learning. We also offer OpenStax Tutor, which is our courseware platform, and our support center, which is a really wonderful resource to turn to if you have any questions about how to use our resources or just want to learn more about everything OpenStax has to offer. Lastly, we also offer OpenStax Tech Scout. So we know just how critical digital technologies and content are to the educational experience today, but we also know how challenging and time-consuming it can be to find the right educational technology products for your course. Therefore, we decided to create OpenStax Tech Scout, which is a searchable tool on our website where you can find courseware, online homework, labs, simulations, and more that align to your course as well as to each of our textbooks. Lrnr is one of the amazing platforms that you can find through Tech Scout. As I mentioned before, we partner with learning technology companies like Lrnr, who provide us with mission support fees that help to sustain our operations. Lrnr provides low-cost, high-value options to ultimately support instructors and students alike. In effect, OpenStax allies like Lrnr help to enrich OpenStax materials and provide the financial support that we need to keep our textbooks current, relevant, and accessible for all. And going off of that, I'm now going to turn it over to Arvind and the Lrnr team to talk more.
Thank you, Lindsay. Let me just start my presentation real quick. There you go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Hey, thank you so much for making this webinar happen. And hello, everybody. And my name is Arvind. We will be talking about anatomy and physiology labs and what we have created, which actually aligns perfectly with the OpenStax A&P textbook, and how you could utilize that in your own labs. So the agenda, we'll go through some quick facts, some of the best practices that a lot of the instructors that have been using OpenStax and Lrnr have incorporated that in their own instruction, both in lecture and lab, followed by a brief demo and summarize whatever we have discussed, and then hopefully the next steps with some Q&A. So my background is from Pearson. So I worked at Pearson for over a decade. That was a decade ago. So a lot of the platforms like My Labs, whether it's My Math Lab or Mastering A&P or Mastering Bio, all of those, I was the architect. So obviously had a lot to do with these early platforms. And of course, they have evolved over time. So I'm extremely familiar with a lot of the technology, homework solutions that align to the traditional textbook publishers. The reason why I left Pearson was the cost factor. So when I left Pearson, I had a mission in mind that I want to kind of reduce the cost of whatever I built at Pearson. I just want to make it cheaper, democratize the cost of course solutions. So in 2016, we partnered with OpenStax because I had a platform but no content. And now this was a fantastic opportunity for taking open ed and focusing purely on open ed and building all the formative resources around it. So what we do today is we build personalized courseware, including the OpenStax text, homework solutions around OpenStax or open ed resources, and also classroom engagement tools. It's kind of a one-stop shop, if you will. And our goal by 2025, hopefully, is to have all these STEM 100 to 300 level courses and also offer it as a library model, more like a Netflix model, if you will. It's $80 per seat, and that will give access to all the courses that we have, which are of high quality. Every single course we build is custom to your needs. So essentially, we are not restricted to just one title of OpenStax. You can mix and match multiple titles of OpenStax to build a course that is called that's your course. And we can do that for you. It's a white glove service. You don't pay us anything for it. All the formative content, the questions, activities, everything that we have built are from the ground up, where we felt that was actually more necessary for us to create questions at a higher level of blooms, and also activities at higher level of blooms, which obviously, when it comes to activities, they're non-existent. And if you look at mastering A&P, you have a lot of options to pick from. So we had to build that. All of our courses, we integrate with all the LMS platforms like Canvas, Blackboard, Brightspace, and Moodle, to make sure that every single student has access in the first day of class. We have a 2-week trial for students. And we have our support is really excellent. We have 7 days of support during the first 6 weeks of the term. And then after that, we have support 6 days a week for the rest of the term, typically on a Sunday when most students try to come and do their homework last minute. Apart from that, we also have a learner give back program. We do work with a lot of different colleges where there are students that are more disadvantaged than the rest of the country. So we appoint instructors to tell us who these students are, and we typically give them free access. And sometimes it's more than 5%, but that's okay. So some of the stats about Lrnr. We built the A&P Lab textbook or manual, if you want to call it, through a Minnesota grant, Department of Minnesota Ed. We won a Shark Tank Award and a grant, and we started building a lab manual. We also licensed 3D models from Zygote, which is actually a Google Body spinoff, and we started building activities using 3D, Cadaver, and recently with the CUNY grant that we are still working on, it's a 3-year grant program. We are not only building virtual lab experiments, we have about 23 lab experiments today and more coming soon. We also went to these labs and took high-resolution photographs of physical models. And then now we have an array of activities for you to pick from, again, aligned to the learning objectives that you can find in OpenStax, whether you can use 3D models, cadaver-based images, where we're bringing students to reality, physical models so that they get context in their labs, and also with high-resolution histological slides. We have also enhanced the A&P textbook that OpenStax already has with 83 new topics and several enhancements that were missing, in our opinion. I think we'll show more about the A&P Lab because this is focused on the labs, and also some of the virtual experiments that align to A&P Labs today in the demo. Our courses and pricing, all of our courses are between $20 and $40. The labs specifically are only $20 per student. That includes all the labs. It's not just by lab. It's all virtual, and that's all the student has to pay. And we also have a library model for $80 for all the courses that we have to offer. So with the structure of our Lrnr course remains the same, whether it's a lecture or lab, it doesn't matter. We have an enhanced OpenStax textbook. We call it the Smart Textbook because we have the OpenStax text, and then we have a whole bunch of supplemental content and formative activities and questions that align to what the student is doing. So we always show students what they need at that point of time. And I can show that to you in a minute. Just like every other online e-reader, you could annotate, bookmark, take notes. And we also build a study guide with all the highlights, bookmarks, and notes that's aligned to the pedagogy or the chapters and sections. So it's easy for students to revise for their midterm or final exams. Like I mentioned before, all of our questions, 70% of our questions wherever possible, not for anatomy as much, but more on the physiological side, are at a higher level of Bloom's because we want to pull students into critical thinking rather than simply memorize. And majority of our questions have right and wrong answer feedback built into them. And every single question that we have created is tied back to the textbook. So, and I'll show that to you as well in the demo. You could build assignments on Lrnr, and we have made it super easy. If you're already familiar with the OpenStax text, to build an assignment using our activities, our quizzes is super easy. We let you preview everything while you're building an assignment, so you don't have to be overwhelmed with the amount of activities and resources that we provide. And you can also customize these activities to your needs, including quizzes. You can also add your own questions on top of whatever questions and activities we provide. One of the nicest things about Lrnr is once you build an assignment, you can assign it to multiple class sections or courses, if you will, on your Blackboard or Canvas or D2L instances. Okay, and you can also share your assignments with other colleagues to standardize assignments across the board. If you're using Canvas, we also can create deep links so that each of your assignments shows up as a link on Canvas for students to simply click on the link and go to their assignments. And we do automate the submission process. So all the grades sync back to your gradebook on your respective learning management systems. Apart from that, apart from homework and an integrated textbook experience, we thought, hey, why not also provide classroom engagement tools? So since last year, we have been heavily investing our engineering efforts in building live polling and lecture slides capabilities, and we are extending that development. This is to make sure that there is one less technology for you to worry about. I know that a lot of you have, typically have used a Kahoot or iClicker or Zoom and Nearpod. There's a ton of other platforms out there, point solutions, where you have to put in a lot of effort to build those questions. And then on top of that, you have to manually move those grades. And then for your students, it's just another technology to learn. So we've built live polling into our platform. Just like students take their assignments, they go to the same area and there's a poll. If you're taking a live poll, it's available right there. So because I'm preaching to the choir, you can assess student efficacy, gaps real time, and also engage your students, especially in this new COVID world that we are all living in. You could also upload your lecture slides. And if you want to, we can upload the OpenStax slides for you guys. And then you can embed activities and questions in between your lecture slides. So after a specific topic, which is probably difficult, you would probably want to quiz your students a couple of questions to understand whether you need to provide more remedial content or use more remedial slides for your students or not. All of Lrnr, majority of Lrnr, I would say, the content is ADA compliant, except for the image-based and 3D-based activities. There's no ADA compliant standards for 3D, and for images, especially for images where you have to identify an image by looking at it. If you explain the image, it kind of gives away the answer. So those are the kind of activities you want to stay away from on Learner to accommodate students that have learning challenges. So let's talk a little bit about the best practices that our instructors that have been using Lrnr and Openstax have been employing at their, in their own classrooms. So we have high-resolution histological slides. Apart from that, what we've done is we have taken screenshots at different zoom levels, and then we've built activities out of that. So essentially, as you know, histology is used for understanding the building blocks of the human body, and for recognizing different types of tissues, and also to differentiate and bridge the gap between structure and function. So again, our activities that are focused on histology addresses these learning challenges. So we have 3D models, like I mentioned before, and students can definitely examine 3D models in greater detail. One of the nice things about Lrnr is we have taken all these 3D scenarios and embedded that into the textbook where it's required the most. And also we've built activities in 3D that align to the learning objectives, specifically in the Openstax text. So you don't have to go through a myriad of different activities, try to figure it out yourself that other platforms provide. So in our case, you don't have to do any of that. So like I mentioned to you before, based on the CUNY grant, we were also able to go into multiple, in the CUNY labs, we went into Truckee Meadows Community College, and we were able to take high resolution photographs of each of these models. And you could use them as, if it's purely online, then it's the physical model images that you have can become the only activities that the students do. Or you could also use this as pre-lab activities before they come in person. So they've already looked at it, and then they're looking at it a second time. It's pretty relevant. So it's extremely good for spaced retention. So we also have cadaver-based images. And what we do is when we build activities, rather than showing you an activity just using a cadaver, we have a toggle button between a cadaver and a model. And most students are familiar with the models and not the cadaver images. So this kind of gives you a perspective, a real life perspective of what they need to expect in real life versus what's virtual. And we do that with a lot of different images for a lot of different body systems, including cross sections. So it provides a lot more context in bringing the student into real life situations. So virtual labs, this is part of the CUNY grant, where during COVID, a lot of, I'm sure a lot of you had issues with, okay, how do we make our students do labs? So rather than going into a lot of augmented reality and virtual reality approaches, what we did was we built something that is more 2D, focuses more on building discipline for students, and then on top of it, focuses on concept building. Because I'm a strong believer that you cannot learn to swim by playing a Farmville game, right? You can't become a farmer by playing Farmville. So is this. So this is more to build your concepts, make it stronger. And so we focus on concept building in all of our virtual experiments, and I'll probably be able to show you one of those experiments today. So time for a brief demo. Anyone have any questions before I start the demo? And just looking at any questions whatsoever. Okay, awesome. So let me just go in here. So imagine that you are in your Canvas or Blackboard or Moodle or D2L instance or Brightspace instance, and on the left navigation bar, it's like you would see a Pearson or a McGraw-Hill link. You'd also see a learner link. You click on that link and you're taken to this dashboard, right? Right now, I have a whole bunch of courses. So for your student, they typically would have only 1 or 2 courses at most. So we have A&P Labs, and let's just click on that. So this is the course dashboard. This is our smart textbook, and I'll go into this in a bit. We have practice quizzes, activities, flashcards, obviously favorites, which is nothing but your bookmarks, highlights, and notes, and your media and 3D bodies, all of them as individual tiles. And all of these are integrated into our textbook. And let's go into it. And I'll show you what I mean. So this is the table of contents. You could minimize it. It's highly responsive. It's all HTML5 based. And we call this the Genius bar. And there's a reason for that. So as I'm scrolling through content, you see that there's a whole bunch of activities. There's a 3D activity, has a prefix called 3D. If there's a cadaver activity, it has a prefix called cadaver. And if they're physical model-based activities, it'll have a physical model. And this is an adaptive quiz. These are videos that associate or that are aligned to the topic out here. And you'll notice that on the top, as I'm scrolling through content, the adaptive sidebar keeps aligning to the content that the student is studying on the left side. So let me actually go into one of these activities. Give me a second, please. Okay. So there's these leader lines that students can look at, and then they can rearrange based on looking at the leader lines. So that's kind of the activity here. And I got one right and the others, 3 of them wrong. We also have, to accommodate students who are colorblind, we also use icons and sometimes strike-throughs because they cannot differentiate between red and green. We have selection-based activities, like in this case, select the following a bone. So let me just redo this. A bone of the skull that doesn't connect to our other skull components through a suture. So again, even with the 3D model based activities, we have incorrect answer feedback captured, and when it's correct, it still gives you feedback. And again, all these are activities that students can do by themselves, but as you know, most students will not do it unless you assign it for some grade points. And you can assign pretty much all of these activities to students. Let me go to a different chapter. So again, there's multiple 3D activities for each of the chapters that we have, chapters and chapter sections that we have. And this is only for the lab. Again, our A&P OpenStax A&P textbook, which is enhanced, has again a myriad of 3D activities which are different than what we have for the lab. Okay. Let's also look at the cadaver-based activities. So it's pretty easy to identify if anything is all 3D activities are grouped as a 3D as a prefix, all physical model activities with a physical model, cadaver with a cadaver, and all 2D activities will not have any prefix, obviously. And our histology-based activities have a histology as a prefix. Okay. So before I show you cadaver, let me just go ahead and show you our 3D models. We have both the adult male and female model, as well as 18 different submodels, if you will. And each of these models, again, if you wanted to build your own activities, you could on Lrnr, on top of whatever activities we have, but your activities are all going to be in 2D. You take a screenshot of it, and then you could create hotspots and then build activities. My apologies for this taking forever to load. I do have a ton of windows open. Okay. And the hierarchy tool, you could take out whatever you don't want. And you could use the hierarchy tool to be a lot more precise on what you don't want. And you also can use other tools like slicing tools to take cross sections, exploding tools to explode and take stuff out. And let's say this is the screenshot you would like to take, and then you can use this this particular scenario or scene to create your activity. Again, it's you can do a lot on Lrnr with the 3D models available. Okay. Now, before I go to the cadaver activities, let me also show you a couple of other things that we have. We have very high resolution, histological slides. Again, if you want to take a screenshot of it at different zoom levels, you can do so. My thing is coming the way. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, there you go. And so we've used the same histological slides to make it easy for you rather than trying to build all these activities. We've already built some of these activities for you. Okay. I'll show you one more just to give you some flavor. All right. So again, all of this is in one single environment. That's the beauty of it. You can find histological slides, videos, all of that, in a single environment. And let me go back to activities now. Now I'll show you cadaver-based activities. So the goal of the cadaver-based activities is to really familiarize the student with a cadaver while also showing them the model, right? And they can literally use these checkboxes here. And the toggle button is because, we also work very well on mobile, and, it's just not possible for us to have both the model and the cadaver loaded up in the same small real estate in a mobile screen. And using this, you can reorder stuff. So one of the nice things about Lrnr is help is embedded in every screen, anything that you do. So in this case, let's say I do not know how to do this activity. I hover on this name. And if I still do not know how to do this activity, I simply click on help. And this help will take me to a contextual help for this specific activity type. See, on Lrnr, that's one of the nicest things is it doesn't matter if you're an instructor, student, whatever you're doing, this help is your best friend. It actually gives you screenshot by screenshot directions on how to do stuff. And if everything else fails, you can always chat with us. So, and that's the nice thing about Lrnr. All right, let's check answer, of course. And as an instructor, you can also show answer. This is not there for the student. And if there's an issue with any of the activities we have, you could simply click on report an issue to report an issue. Okay. Let's go back to the activity list. Let me show you histology based activities. So there's a whole bunch of drag and drop activities here. I have no idea what I'm doing because I'm not an A&P expert. And that's the strike through that I was talking about to accommodate students who are colorblind. Yes. And then there are more activities, drag and drop, labeling, and so on. Okay. So I thought I didn't show you stuff, but I did. And finally, the last activity type is physical model-based activities. We have a ton of physical model-based activities. We have taken pictures from every angle so that you don't have to. And it's available for pretty much all the body systems. So yeah, that kind of gives you a variety, right, to pick from. You could either say, oh, I only want to use the physical models because they could be pre-lab activities to my students. And some might want to just use 3D models. I mean, it's completely up to you. You're the kings and queens of your kingdoms. So, and finally, we have our 2D model-based activities. Again, we have a ton of those. And this is, this incorporates matching, and, we have over 25 different activity types. And I think we've used about 10 or 11 of them in the 2D based activities, apart from all the other activity types that you saw. Okay. Okay. So that's all to do with all the activities that we have for the Lrnr A&P Labs. Now let's look at the quizzes itself, right? So let's go into something that's a little more interesting. Okay, let's. Okay, so if you're not able to see this, again, we are trying to use scenarios to make students understand. And typically every question, if it shows you the Bloom's level, there's a little gamified points. And obviously, if you make it as part of your assignment, it all translates to whatever grade points you want to assign for this quiz. And we have wrong answer feedback. And if I click on the reference link, it takes me back to a specific place in the text. Okay, like I said before, every single question is not just tied to a chapter section, but to a specific paragraph or specific area where the student can hopefully see that and then go and answer the question. And if I don't get it right a second time, the student is still told what the correct answer is. So this is one of the main reasons why you don't find a lot of our questions on Chegg and tutor.com and places like that, because we are bringing the student to the correct answer. And we're also selecting distractors that are relevant or related. And we're also telling them why that is not the correct answer, or what is a bicuspid valve, for example. Okay. We have other question types as well. In the interest of time, I'd like to move on. So finally, we can also mix and match. Remember, I told you that we can mix and match simulations, or we can mix and match everything. You can literally create a course which uses chapters and sections from A&P, biology, and so on and so forth. So we built 23 lab simulations, and I presume that the iodine test, maybe mitosis, meiosis, blood grouping, white blood cells, some of these simulations are probably relevant to what you do in your labs. So I'll show you iodine test. I won't go through the entire experiment. It's pretty painful. Actually, let me finish this. So every single experiment that we have starts with 4 steps. You have an introduction, then you have a preparation step. So the students have to click on stuff, not to prepare the start solution, but we tell them how it's done. We show them what amylase is and how it's it's made, and what's iodine and so on. And once the student has gone through this, they can go to the next step, which is the procedure. And remember, like I told you, this is to focus more on building discipline. Most students do not follow the specific steps involved in every lab, and that's where they mess up the experiment and they don't get the results that they're supposed to get. So here, we don't have the same 5 test tubes for all students, and the values also keep changing. We have about 8 scenarios for the iodine test. I think we have about 8 scenarios, and out of those 8 scenarios, 5 are picked, and then the numbers are randomized so that no 2 students get the same value, so it kind of throws them off. And the scenarios could be no amylase versus denatured amylase, and the results are the same, but we'll ask them to defend, and I'll show that to you in a minute. Hopefully I can do this really fast. So right now I have to add start solution real quick. And I'm going to do this pretty fast in the interest of time. So we make it pretty painful for them to add all of these. And if they miss something, they have to reset the test tube and do it again. You see in this, there's no amylase. So let's actually go to the 5 ml. And then finally distilled water. Okay, so now I'm going to validate it. And one of my test tubes has only 6 ml, and it's expected to have 7 ml of distilled water. So, and the thing is, if you add more, you have to reset the test tube. In this case, I didn't add more, so everything got validated. So next step is to incubate. So it tells you the temperature and the time. So I can use either a water bath or an ice bath. 37 and 30. So I'm just gonna see if there's anything. No. So have 15. So I'll add 1 incubator here. And 1 more incubator here. 5. And then, so again, it's just more of a process. 60 and 30. So, and I validate it. So once the validation is successful, thank God we don't have to wait so much time for the incubation process. Now it says add 3 drops of iodine. Students even go wrong here. They'll only add 1. And again, all of this is to create a little bit of pain. And again, we didn't come up with these experiments. You guys did. So we literally were listening to instructions and feedback coming from faculty of CUNY, PIMA, and TMCC, and then we built these labs. Okay, so finally, once all of this done, so students don't lose any points, right? I mean, all of this is to just focus on following procedure. And then you go to results. And rather than telling them what color it changed to, we'll tell them we'll ask them to hypothesize on what does it change to. So I'm just going to randomly pick the same. And we'll tell them, what the actual color it changes to is, okay, for each of these scenarios. And then we'll ask them, why do you think it changes to these colors? So remember, I told you that there's some 8 different scenarios. They have to defend why it changes to this color. Again, I have to read specifically. And in this case, submit answer. And I got all of them wrong. So I only got 10 points. And so I'm only getting points for, 1 is to hypothesize the color change. And then 2 is to defend why, it changes to that specific color. And that's really this experiment. And again, if the same student does it a second time, they get different scenarios with different values. So they just cannot take screenshots and then copy. So we have 23 such experiments, and then more coming soon. I'll quickly go back to the assignments to show you how easy it is to create an assignment with everything that I showed you, right? So this is your assignment screen. You can build a homework assignment, which is typical, and a test if you also want to not use responders or honor lock and copy all the questions and go through the pain. We have a test mode. So in the test mode, if you have like 5 windows of Lrnr open across multiple devices, every single window, once you start the test, will point to the test. So you can't just go and have 5 windows of homework and all that open and say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to go check the questions and what I answered, which is what students love to do. So once you put a name to your assignment, you can provide instructions with links of any sort. You can tell students what to study. So imagine this being your custom course that we've built for you. You can literally pick and choose what you want your students to study and not study, obviously. So I'm just randomly picking something. You can preview, like I remember I told you that you can pretty much preview everything right from here, including the histological slides. It might take a little bit of time because it's a pretty heavy image, but yeah. So essentially, everything that I showed you till now, you could literally, while building an assignment, preview all of that before you assign it to your students. So we make it super easy for you to do this. And so I'm going to select a few of these activities and the quiz bank with 25 questions, and we'll kind of customize it. So step 3 is all about customizing it. You can leave the quizzes adaptive. It'll typically ask 8 to 10 questions per student. And here activities, if you don't say graded is yes, students won't do it. You can have the number of attempts to 2 or unlimited. And this is where you set the grade points for each of these quizzes. And these grade points get transferred, synced to your learning management system. So for one of these, let's actually go ahead and customize the activities. So these labels, I'm just going to zoom in a bit, show you the type of activity. This is a fill in the blank with a drag and drop. And again, we make it easy for you to even know the answer. So click on show answer, because you're not being tested here, your students are. So we make it super easy for you to simply expand every activity. Click on this little show answer button. And if you feel that this activity is incorrect, report that activity to us. And this report goes directly to our content editorial team, and they typically fix this issue within 48 hours. Okay, and let's say I want to customize the activities that I want to pick. I don't want the students to do all of them. So you can pick and choose whatever you want your students to do. It's super easy. Save it. You get out of there. And it also tells you which of these activities are customized with the suffix that says customized. Practice quizzes, exactly the same thing. Number of attempts is unlimited. 2. You can still customize. If you keep it adaptive, the students don't get asked 25 questions. It's typically 8 to 10, like I said. Otherwise, if you want to pick the questions you want, you can expand each of these questions. And this tells you the Bloom's level and the difficulty level and the type of question. And you can again pick and choose the questions that you want. I'm just doing it randomly. And finally save it. Once I put some grade points here, step 4 shows up. I can select the class sections. I don't have any active class sections for labs, but if I did, I could select a class section and I could select multiple class sections at a single point of time and then set a start date in the future. So that's the release date. Till that release date, your students will not be able to see the assignment and the due date. And you could also, there's something called extend for a specific student. You could also extend the assignment for a specific student as well. To accommodate students, and then you can save, and then you can also save and publish. So once I go to assignments, I could pretty much publish all my assignments, and they show up out here. So let me quickly go to A&P lecture to show you some reports on assignments. Okay. This is a homework on muscle tissue. And these are all the quizzes that have been assigned to the students. And these are all the learner points, and these are the grade points that get transferred to each student. So we make it easy for you to even reset attempts, and we can go to more detail if you want in a detailed demo. You can just request a demo, personalized demo. But for this purpose of this demo, let's think that Nancy has come to your office and she needs personalized help, right? So you could literally sit and check what are her responses for the activities and quizzes, see the responses that she's provided, and then give her more feedback and remedial help that's apt for her needs. We have a lot more to show you. I haven't shown you the live platform, which is more classroom engagement, because the focus was on A&P Labs. Let me get back to my little slide deck here. So some of the things that are still in the works is we're adding about 5 more new chapters to our A&P Lab textbook. We'll also be working on fetal pig, because everything that we've done is more human anatomy. We've not used any fetal pig or cat in our A&P lab text, if you will. And we're also working on these additional lab experiments like the one I showed you, which is similar to iodine test. So we're working on additional lab activities, and this is for biology, but the focus is A&P. So in summarize everything, we have custom courses. You can assign quizzes and activities. You can build your own. You can conduct live polls with your own slides or with the slides that OpenStax provides. You could integrate our courses into your LMS with automatic grade sync and single sign-on. Students get 2-week trial right at the beginning of the class. We have excellent customer support, and we also have a learner give back program. We have a ton of testimonials on OpenStax, which we cannot control. Please go check them out yourself, and how every single instructor has been using Lrnr. And if you want to know more about Lrnr and want to use Lrnr, because you've attended this webinar, we are offering you a free pilot for your summer term, where you can try it out firsthand and see without, there's absolutely no questions asked in terms of pricing. And if this is something that you like, then you can make a decision after that. So for now, you could literally schedule a demo with us if this is something that's of interest to you, and then we can go from there. So you could schedule a demo directly at lrnr.us/demo, or you could send us an email at lrnfast@lrnfast.com. And our next webinar on the 12th is a biology labs webinar, which is similar, but it's focusing on more biology virtual lab experiments that we have been working with CUNY for the last 4 semesters on. And now let me take some questions. Yeah, I think, Kelsha, I think you can please reach out to us. We typically want folks to do pilots, free pilots in summer, because there's not a lot of new sections that we create. In fall, it's our big semester. So what happens is we end up having a ton of people trying to come and say, I want my classes created, courses created. That's usually why we prefer that you at least, even if you're trying to plan using it in fall, we request you to work with us and create your course shells, or we'll create the course shells, work with us to create your course shells and the LMS integration much ahead of time. So that way, it's not like last minute. Everybody wants everything at the last minute, and that's where we can't, we cannot provide excellent support, and we'd love to provide excellent support to every single customer of ours. I think I did talk about ADA compliance. Identification-based activities using images are not ADA compliant. There's no publisher that can make it ADA compliant, because you have to, explain the image, and I don't think that that can defies the purpose of identification. So Becky Allen has a question. Can the point values be changed for each activity? No, we have measured the number of points depending on the number of questions you're answering at different Bloom's level. You can actually translate that to grade points as a weighted average. And if you really want to control that, you can always build your own activities on Lrnr with the images that we have. Liz Dement, yes, the $20 includes the entire experience. So The A&P Lab as an experience for a student would be $20. And if a student flunks, and that's per term, and if a student flunks, or gets an incomplete, they don't have to pay that for a 12-month period. So for the 12 months, the $20 is good for the 12 months. So hope that answers your question. Yeah, they work on iPads and mobile phones. We tested them. Again, the way I would explain some of these models, 3D models, is think about a swimming pool and a jacuzzi, right? You can't do laps in a jacuzzi, right? You can do that in a swimming pool. So essentially, it's the same thing here. So if you want to have high quality 3D models with a lot of articulation, you want to use a bigger screen. Otherwise, it becomes very challenging for you to navigate through it. Can you do it? Yes. Is it going to be as good as a bigger screen like an iPad, a tablet, or a computer? No, it won't, but it'll still work. And if I have not answered any of your questions, I will go through all the chat transcripts personally, and we will reach out to each of you and hopefully respond to all of your questions. So please, because in the interest of time, please know that we will get back.
Well, thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. And thank you, Arvind, and the rest of the Lrnr team for yet another fantastic webinar. Thank you all so much again, and please be sure to join us for our upcoming Biology Labs webinar this upcoming Tuesday. And we hope that everyone has a great day and a great rest of their week.
Hey, thank you so much, Lindsay, for again setting up a great webinar, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you. Bye.